Howdy, lieutenants and economists.
The most volatile, evil, disgusting things on the planet, humans. If you have a video request, you can always go to assholeconsulting.com.
Yeah, I am gonna charge you, kids. And that is the importance of not fucking up.
You are such an asshole!
Hello everyone, this is a two-part question. So it's two separate requests on the same email, so I'm going to start with the shorter, easier one first because I'm tired. I have yet to go to the gym, and I'm playing a game called Witcher 3. So far, it's pretty good. Maybe I'll start doing reviews of that, and then that way I can write them off. They say, can you? Yes, technically I can, but we'll see. Anyway, I don't know if I really want to do video game reviews. So, the next time I want to know about is what is going on in Greece. How they got to where they are, where they're going from this point onward. Is the proposed bailout sustainable? How can the world just keep on printing money like this forever? When/how does the music stop? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, we'll give you a quick... Where the head here? Give you a quick breakdown of what's happened with Greece. This is going to be the commoners, though no less intelligent persons. This is people who have a life and they aren't economists and they have sex in a real life and a social life. Greece, basically, we'll go this far back. Stefan Molyneux did a great thing on IQ in Greece and how pretty much all the smart people left Greece. It's called brain drain or capital flight. Look it up. So most of the intelligent, talented people left Greece. On top of that, Greece wanted to join the European Union. Greece itself is not a great country in terms of employability or future outlook for young people, so this only exacerbated that problem. Because once you join the European Union, that means you can go and work at any of these member states. So it's not just an issue of making it easier for currency exchange because you had 50 different currencies and you have to change your currency every 200 miles because the countries in Europe are about that big. They say, screw this, is very inefficient. We're going to make it easy. We're going to have one currency. But we're also going to allow labor and capital to freely flow. So if you are Greek and you would like to work in Spain, you can do that. If Spain is, yeah, I think Spain is part of the euro. If you are Italian and you would like to work in Germany, you can go ahead and do that. So you just got to apply, get the job, there you go. So this also exacerbated that brain drain. If there's no jobs at your home country, you go over, and Poland did this, the Poles went to Germany to look, the Baltics, all the small, not the Baltics, Bulgaria, all the smart people went and they worked somewhere else. And it leaves older, lesser intelligent, less productive people. And I'm sorry, all the Greeks in the homeland could get their tits in a sling for all I care. This is the real world where you guys are the ones on the verge of crisis. So don't think, oh, I got to be politically correct now. It's time for adult truth. So you have your talented Greeks, the brain drain occurring, working in other countries and doing many great Greek things, but it goes to benefit the French or the Germans or the Italians or wherever the Greeks may have moved to. So Greece gets into the European Union. They then they get money from the European Union to build up infrastructure, among other things, and they also had the worthless thing that's a negative net economic present value, the Olympics. And a guy at Goldman Sachs helped them get into the European Union by fudging their numbers. They lied about their balances of their budgets and their debts and all this other stuff. They get in, and it turns out that they are not really good with their finances. Matter of fact, they're a net negative economic producer, or their budget, I should say, their deficit is, they have a deficit. They are not within the rules and the lines of fiscal austerity and responsibility. So over the past, 10 years? When the heck did Greece had, the Olympics? 2004, was it? So in the past decade, and this, I remember this, they were talking about this on Dennis Prager a long-ass time ago, probably a decade ago, about how Greece just is not getting its financial act together. And what has happened, it doesn't matter what name is put on the political party that's in charge. Conservative, leftist, liberal, that doesn't matter. They spent more money than they made. And among of all the things that they have pissed away their money on, borrowing money, they spend it on insane government compensation schemes. Like people could, there was a police guy who was complaining because he had to work as a security guard because he retired at 41. The teachers, the government workers, they blow all this money because if you give people money, they're going to vote for you. And it's a temporary trick that works in the short and medium term, where you promise people today, you deliver today, and make them pay tomorrow. And if you do it right, the people who benefit today don't pay tomorrow because they're dead. We call them baby boomers here in the United States. You may call them something different in Israel. So the politicians who do that, they're great and heralded as champions. Everyone loves them, and hopefully they die with the generation that benefits from future generations that may end up having to pay for it. Well, the problem with debt financing and running deficits is the people who lend you money would like to be paid back. And I love how they make it seem like the evil banks are evil, and Germany's evil, and these countries that want their money back are evil. No, they have self-respect, because let's explain what money is. Money is human life in physical manifestation form. That's what it is. I go and get $10, I got to give up part of my life to get that. Then they give me $10 at whatever value per hour I'm paid. Wage, dollar per hour I'm paid. I get my $10. That's part of my life that I can now go and exchange. Well, even though it was banks, depositors, investors, all that, they gave up part of their finite lives, invested in these banks. These banks then lent out their money to basically idiotic, lazy Greeks. And the Greeks invested it poorly. Usually the whole idea of a bank is you lend it to, you borrow it to, you pay your depositors 2%, and then you lend it at 4 or 5. You invest it in something, that's the whole idea of invest. Your cost of capital is 2%, but you invest in something that pays 5 or 6%, and it nets you a profit, net interest. And that was the whole idea. Well, we will lend the money to the Greeks, they will invest it in infrastructure, education, technology, whatever else, and then their GDP will grow, their tax base will increase, they will have more tax revenues than they did before, and they will pay us with those tax revenues. Instead, the Greeks did not invest it. They bribed people, they paid socialists, they paid government unions, they paid government workers to sit there and do jack fucking shit. And they overpaid them as well. This did not contribute to the growing economy. This did not result in the private sector growing at all. Nothing grew. I mean, you look at their GDP figures. And so when the Greeks literally pissed away these billions of dollars, they did not invest it. There was no rate of return. They could not pay back the banks, and the banks are like, where the fuck is our money? Okay. And that's basically it. And this is kind of the story of every government ever that's ended up facing a default. They pissed it away buying bread in circuses to make whatever current governors and politicians in power popular, reelected, keep their political careers going. And that's it. It's made just to keep the political careers going. That's all this ever was, at the expense of the fiscal integrity of the nation. So when it comes time to pay, people are like, hey, we're not going to lend you any more money, because that effectively means slavery. Already you got us on the hook for, $360 billion? All these people in Europe, either through banks or through government bailouts that have not yet technically occurred in this round, the Germans, the French, the Italians, other people within the European Union that work and forfeit part of their finite lives to be converted to money, to not lend to, just basically give to the Greeks. They're like, whoa, you can't even pay us back and now you want more? Fuck you. And that's what it was not a vote that the EU held, it was a vote that the Greeks held, where the Greeks said, no, we're not paying it back. Now, I can appreciate that and understand that a little bit, because it is kind of telling the bankers to fuck off. The bankers, and here's where the bankers are not necessarily innocent either. You saw this in the housing bubble here in the United States, where the bankers should have known, like, you're always going to have people that will borrow more than they can afford. That's just how it happens. But banks, part of banking, if not the part of banking, is that you analyze the risk. You analyze the credit risk. This is what I did when I used to be in banking. I was a credit analyst. So you assess the risk. And the banks failed in this regard. Goldman Sachs, Intelligent, all these European banks that lent, oh yeah, we'll lend you guys money, we'll buy some Greek bonds. They did absolutely no due diligence. They did no research. And so they should pay. They should so I don't think there should be a taxpayer bailout, be the Germans or the French, but these banks should definitely go the fuck under. But of course, then they'll be bailed out by the European Central Bank, just like we bailed out our dumb fuck banksters over here. So inevitably, it is ultimately going to be the taxpayers, the Germans and the French and the other producers of the European Union that are going to bail out these Greeks. Unless, what would really be awesome is Greece tells the bankers to fuck off like Iceland did. And then the Germans and the European Unions tell the bankers to fuck off. We're not bailing you out. That would be interesting. That would be cool. But they're going to freak out and worry about financial contagion and all that. So anyway, so that is what has happened here with Greece. Is what they're at that point. They've basically given the bird to these banks, saying we're not going to pay you back. Fuck you. And now all these European countries who are worried that the Greeks not paying back this $300+ billion that they owe to their financial system is going to throw the financial system into peril and cause a Euro economy-wide recession. So now, and it's great because Greece is playing the bad boy hardball, which they should if they're I mean, that's one respect I got for this communist piece of shit douchebag. He's telling the banks to fuck off. It's awesome. So now this has got all the other socialist wimps pissing their pants. Like Merkel is pretty strong. I'll grant her that. She's she's the evil person. No, she's the only one that's got any self-respect for the Germans. But I love seeing all the other European, The Hague or Brussels? Which one is which? I keep forgetting. Whatever, all these schmucks over at the European Union. Like, oh, well, there's always negotiation. So, what is going to happen going forward? It's going to happen what always happens. They're just going to kick the can down the road. None of these people got the fucking balls to tell Greece to go fuck itself. Greece is going to get permanently bailed out until to the point, maybe the European Union and Germany says, fuck, I've really had enough. I mean, this is not it. Greece is not done whipping the European Union as its whipping boy yet. The European Union is spineless. They will not. They'll collapse. They'll cave. So I predict that there will be more negotiations, more this, more that. Greece has already defaulted on its debts. The question is whether or not inevitably are the European Union countries going to bail out their banks. But they're going to hem and haw, keep on going. It's going to ultimately boil down to down the road. I don't know when this will be, where they finally kick Greece out of the euro, or productive countries leave the euro. Now, I'm an economist, and I'm a good one, so I predict I can't tell when that's going to be. I don't know when. I cannot predict the future, which makes me better than most economists. But it is, and this is where it leads to your logical question, can you always have bailing out? Is this sustainable? No, it's not. Because inevitably, the buck has to stop somewhere. Okay, Germany and France, well, not Germany, but pretty much every other European country is borrowing money as well. And people who are going to lend it, they can print off money, but that creates hyperinflation. That throws their economy into a toast. So that's one way it can end. More likely, though, these countries have to borrow money to bail out the banking industry, indirectly bailing out Greece, or bail out Greece directly. You have to go then and sell bonds or tax your people. Neither of which is popular, but people will have to. You have to convince them to willingly sell or to buy your bonds to lend you money. And sometimes that may not happen. Now, what might also lead to the case would be a Cyprus-like confiscation of the bank accounts. And that will shut down there are different ways where it will inevitably bail out. More so it will happen. It will come to an end. I mean, it could be 30, 40 years down the road until inevitably there just isn't a market anymore for European Union debt to effectively bail out Greece. Right? So that there could be, another thing that Greece does in Iceland again is fuck you. They start printing off drachma and they have their own currency. I think that'd be the coolest, not necessarily the best, but the coolest solution to solve. The only way it could go on beyond our lives is what the United States is currently doing, and that is you have a world reserve currency. And this brings in a whole new element because we have the magical currency. We have the magical penis. Everybody wants our cock. Everybody wants the US dollar. Do we produce anything here? Not really. Do we run deficits and debts kind of like Greece? Yeah. Do we have a socialist dipshit and a bunch of fucking morons that voted in? We do. But you know something? We won World War II. And a lot of shit was still made here and kind of out of habit, and the fact that we're not as corrupt, and there's no other country that's big enough that has our economy, our economic power, not to mention our military. We can do that all day, just print off and run debts, and it doesn't matter. People will still buy our shit, because where else are they going to put their money? It's absolute shit. What do you go buy Swiss francs? They don't have the size of the economy, or like Singapore, small, much more stable countries, much better fiscally, financially countries. They don't have the assets to validate, or the economic production, domestic anyway, to validate the world currency being the Swiss franc. Well, theoretically that is possible, but inevitably sanity would kick in and say, why why does one Swiss franc buy all of New Jersey? I don't get this. What's happening here? But with the United States, because we're big enough, we're the only game pretty much on the planet, we can print off as much money and live like Greece, but never really suffer the consequences until a point in time comes that people are going to say an alternative world reserve currency comes in and say, like, dude, screw you guys. You don't pay us interest on it. Matter of fact, we got to pay you. You have negative interest rates at your central bank. You guys are a bunch of assholes on top of it. We don't like the Americans. Fuck you. There's a boycott of the American dollar, so that could happen too. But inevitably, either through Greece voting to leave and starting to print their own currency, Germany and other productive nations leaving the European Union, and immediately, they pronounce the Deutschmarks and fuck up the European Union. That you want to see the euro crash real quick, which would actually devalue the Greek debt. But we won't get into exchange rates right now. That would bring about an end to the financing and the constant bailouts of Greece, or letting the banks collapse, which may throw the European Union into a financially induced recession, but that is another place where the bailouts would stop. There would be no more money. The banks would go bankrupt. They made stupid loans. As the banks go bankrupt, that is then wiped out, forgiven because they filed for bankruptcy, and then that $360 billion is wiped off the balance sheet of the Greek debts. But yeah, no, it's. I guess the larger philosophical question you have in terms of economics is, this is completely immoral. Why? When does it end? It doesn't, because of what's called democracy. What it boils down to, the true people, like the number one culprits or criminals in this, are the Greek people who voted in and violated a very simple law of physics. It's not even economics, law of physics. You don't consume more than you make. No entity, no system is sustainable that consumes more than it produces. And that's what the Greeks want to do. They want to live parasitically. That's it. There's no touchy-feely. They want to live parasitically. They want other people to pay for their shit. They want to consume more than they make. And if everybody does that, or enough countries do, there is not enough economic production to go around. And yes, it is immoral. It's not right to be parasitical, but that's democracy. Democracy, we can vote to enslave our future children with debt that is kicked down to them. We could join currency unions and have other more productive nations bail our asses out as we devalue the currency, and they're the only ones giving it value. I could be a trophy wife and sell my titties and live off of my rich husband. It's parasitism all around. It's human nature. Laziness is human nature. Ideally, you'd have a republic and smart people typically who own property, who have the right to vote. But now that we let everybody vote, whether or not you collect a government check or not, that's the drawback and the death knell of democracy. You have the parasites not only outvote, but outgrow and outpopulate the producers, and they vote in, perfect example, Greece, communist dipshits. So, there is an end. Typically doesn't end pretty. Unless it's Iceland, although I love how they kick those fucking banker scum out. But until banks learn to say no, and countries learn to say no, and not lend to parasitical losers, and people learn to live within their means, this will continue on forever. And it will continue on forever. Humans never learn from mistakes. This is why I'm a misanthrope and I hate humans. You can't rely on them to be productive and reliable and show up on time, but you can predict them to be a bunch of self-serving, greedy fucks. And that's why it's always, it's good to bet against humanity. It really is. So, anyway, best of luck to you. Hope that explains some things. Toodles.